So my job this morning is probably the best job of the day, which is to welcome you all to this, our 5th research symposium from the Mind Matters Initiative. I can't believe we've done 5 of these already. I've got a note on here saying, who am I? And the reason for that is that I always forget to introduce myself. When a lady of a certain age has a piece of paper in like large font saying, who am I? You have to start to worry about that. So my name is Lizzie Lockett. I'm the Chief Executive at the RCVS. The reason why I've been asked to do this is that I actually was involved with the startup of the Mind Matters Initiative, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've done and why we've done it actually, but I'll come on to that shortly. This is the 5th of our symposiums, and we do them every 2 years. And really it's bringing together people from the mental health community, research community, to talk about what's new. So that's academics, researchers, people involved in delivering support services. We've got some journalists in the room, a really good mix of people. So I hope you all enjoy chatting to each other. So there's a quote that you will all know, I'm sure, by Maya Angelou, which is that people will not remember what you did and they will not remember what you said, but they will remember how you made them feel. And I often think about that before I get up on my hind legs and talk to a group of people and think about how we want people to feel about the day and the event. Where I've landed for this one, this day of research, questioning, seeking to understand, is compassionate curiosity. So that's how I'd like you to feel, that you're curious, you've got compassion, you're not probing, but you're wanting to understand. And don't worry, no cats will be harmed in the making of this symposium, no matter how curious you might be. So first off, we have a question on good old Slido. Now, you should have been given the Slido QR code when you came into the room. If you weren't, it's there on the screen. And we'd just like you to spend a moment just thinking about what you would like to get out of attending today. So I'm sure you all know the drill with Slido. Download or go to the website on your phone. So quick note on housekeeping, if you can hear me now. So if the fire alarm goes off, we're not expecting a drill right now. So the exits are here, here, and here. If you go through that one, turn right. If you go through that one, turn your left. And there's a congregation space or some grass over there. We have got mental health first aiders in the room. They're wearing green lanyards. So if you ever need any support at any time of the day, appreciate there's some topics that we'll be discussing today that might just surface things you maybe weren't expecting. Please do talk to them, make use of their skills. We have a wellbeing room and a multi-faith room on the first floor, and there's plenty of space, excuse me, up there for you just to get a little bit of space on your own. We have regular breaks throughout the day, but again, if you want to take some time out, you want to leave a session, please just go. Pop your phones on silence. Clapping. We've had some requests from people who don't like too much clapping during the day. The noise can be a little bit intrusive. So what we've decided to do as a compromise is have, if you feel so inclined to give people a round of applause, we do it at the end of the session. So just before the breaks and lunch, if that's okay. And then also, as I'm sure you've spotted, we've got videos at the back. Hopefully they'll be able to cut out all the bit at the beginning about me waffling on about not hearing you or you not hearing me. And we've also got photographer Jacob over here. If you would rather not be included in the photographs, please let Jacob know, and we will make sure that you are not. Right, so today is World Mental Health Day. What a fabulous coincidence. It's almost like we planned it. So today's an opportunity to raise awareness of mental health issues, and this year's theme is access to services, mental health in catastrophes and emergencies. And I think really, as we'll all be aware now more than ever, the world does seem to be in turmoil politically, financially, environmentally. And I think, it's not just the big catastrophes that you hear about where people need support, although those clearly are vitally important. But we all have our emergencies and catastrophes in terms of our day-to-day life. So I think this is a theme that resonates for everybody. So in the programme that's on your table, you'll see we've broken the day into various chunks. You've got myself and colleagues Rupinder and Lloyd this morning. We've then got a series of research talks in the morning and then the afternoon. We're giving out our mental health research grants this afternoon as well. And we will also have, when we've finished, tea and cake in there to celebrate our 10th anniversary. So I'm going to spend the next 15 minutes or so just backtracking a little bit to why Mind Matters started. And for those of you who are new to Mind Matters, this may be interesting for you. It's been 10 years, and lots of people kind of raised an eyebrow, I think, when we started and said, is this really a role for a regulator? Sorry, I'm now struggling with juggling 400 things with a mic in my hand. Is it really a role for a regulator to get involved in mental health support? We knew there were issues. There was high suicide rates in the profession, high rates of mental ill health. VetLife existed, still does, thankfully, and at that time was the Veterinary Benevolent Fund. So people said, surely that's enough, isn't it? And why are you guys getting involved? And there was two parts to that. Was firstly, through our code of conduct, which hopefully the veterinarians and veterinary nurses in the room will be familiar with, there is a responsibility on veterinary surgeons and veterinary nurses to take steps to address adverse physical or mental health that might impair their fitness to practice. Now, what that doesn't mean is that we need to know if you have any mental health issues. What that does mean is that if you do, you need to make sure that you are safe to work. Now, where that becomes a college issue, I think, is back 10 years ago and still true to some extent now. We felt that people didn't actually know what an adverse mental health condition looked like. They didn't necessarily know what good looked like. They didn't necessarily know where to go for help. They were maybe not ready to seek help, so perhaps not emotionally trusting in the environment that we all work in to think I can seek help and it will benefit me and that I will be able to go back to work and there will be no stigma attached to me doing that. There was also a fear of the college and the regulatory process, which I think also interrupted people's help-seeking behaviours. And also they weren't necessarily sure why the college was asking for this to happen. Why was it important from an animal health and welfare perspective? So all of that kind of brought together a feeling really that we needed to try and do something to address those issues. Sorry, I'm juggling bits of paper here. And we felt there was a role for the regulator, not only in response to what we needed people to do from a regulatory perspective in terms of setting and maintaining standards and confidence in the veterinary profession, but also this was the right thing to support people and also the right thing for animal health and welfare and for clients, because ultimately, when we're all working in a more honest, open and supported way, that's going to be better in terms of service delivery. So at that point, this was actually in 2014, the chief executive at the time, Nick Stace, said to me, who I was communications director at the time, here's £1 million in 5 years. Can you trot off and sort that problem out? Which was when I really started to understand what stress felt like. And at that point, of course, everyone said, great, this is just the help we need. Thank you so much, RCVS. Thank you. We support you doing a good job, right? Not so much. The main question was, you're doing what? What exactly? What's going on? Now, picture behind me. This is not the new RCVS headquarters, even though you may have heard rumours that it's a grandiose building, despite what people might be telling you, although we do have some nice plants in our building, as you might find in a glass house, a greenhouse. So why is this relevant? So I think we all know the expression, people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, and that's about the risks of hypocrisy. And I think I heard that or something like that quite a lot when we first started this project. People were worried that we would be criticising organisations and people for how they supported their teams, and they felt that perhaps we weren't the right body to do that, that because we as a regulator do inspire is perhaps the wrong word, but create some stress in people's minds as regulated professionals, that it was wrong of us, it was hypocritical of us to be involved in this, and that we need to get our house in order, if you like, first. And I think my response to that was, if we all follow the mantra that you have to be perfect yourself before you start to help somebody else, I don't think very much help would get done in this world. I think you have to accept your flaws, and we certainly do, and we've been working on those. But whilst we are working on those, we can also work to help the professions and the wider veterinary team. But it did take a certain amount of courage in those early days to stick to our path, and it put me in mind quite often of a saying that's attributed to Winston Churchill, which is, you will never reach your destination if you stop and throw stones at every dog that barks. And it's actually quite fitting that he used that kind of canine analogy, because many of you will be familiar with the expression black dog for depression, which was another expression that Churchill used, although I'm not sure he actually coined it. So we were actually ahead of the game. Now, this picture, it's a bit blurry from the back, is me, age 6, at the Silver Jubilee Sports Day on the farm where I grew up. I was 6 years old, so you can work out how ancient I am. And with my lack of sporting prowess, I think this is the first and last time that I was ever first in anything. Although when I showed these photos to my husband recently, he just looked at it and went, "We do realise there's nobody else in that race, don't you?" And actually, I genuinely never recognised that in the entire time. I've been really proud of that picture. So that broke my dream. But although my sporting dreams perhaps have not been realised, we were the first UK professional regulator to run a mental health support scheme. And although ChatGPT makes a lot of stuff up, it did tell me this, which I was quite pleased with. And I believe this. So based on a detailed review of timelines and initiatives across UK professional regulators, the RCVS appears to have been the first professional regulator in the UK to launch a dedicated mental health programme, which I think we should be very proud of as a profession. And our role as a Royal College, as well as a regulator, gave us the space to do this. There are programmes out there now. It's actually considered very much part of a regulator's core role. It's part of what we call upstream regulation, so the stuff that you do to stop people having problems later on. But at the time when we started, it absolutely wasn't. And just before I move off this slide, I would just like you to note how on brand my 1970s anorak was. Mind Matters turquoise. Glorious. So we have £1 million, we have 5 years. Where did we start? Well, the first thing we did was to try and understand what other professions were doing. But as I said, we were out ahead a little bit of the field, so there wasn't an awful lot to look at. So what we tried to do was really distill the issues, and we had a working group that then morphed into our task force as we went forward. And we worked around 3 streams of activity: prevent, protect and support. And Rupinder will talk a little bit more later on about some of the work that we're doing under those streams. But essentially it was looking at how do we solve the issues, or try to solve the issues that are causing mental ill health and stress in the profession? How do we protect people from those factors while we're sorting out the bigger picture problems? And then also, how do we support people? And that was the one where, as a regulator, it was the most difficult for us to offer support. So we do that through financial support of other organisations, and I'll come on to that in a moment. And we launched this under a separate brand because there was some fear of the college at the time, which is why the Mind Matters brand came into life. And we also had a pan-professional task force. And there's an expression that I probably bored people to death with, but is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And that's really testament to the power of collaboration. And it actually links back to our coat of arms, which is why it's on the slide here. The motto at the bottom, Vis Unita Fortior, means essentially stronger together. And that's been our motto since 1844. And that was something that we really brought through very strongly through the Mind Matters initiative. And that meant that collaboration, that we had a whole range of activities over the last 10 years, working with lots of other organisations and individuals. And I'll just name check a few of them. So we had Wellbeing Awards, which we did together with SPIVs, Mental Health for Managers course with the Veterinary Management Group, VetKind with the Association of Veterinary Students, workshops with the BVNA, a special video animation with British Equine Veterinary Association, mindfulness webinars with the Webinar Vet, the And Me campaign with the Doctors Support Network, pilots of Schwartz rounds with practices and veterinary schools, mental health awareness with BSAVA. And I would just point out BSAVA have been extraordinarily financially generous with support as well. Student roundtable and action plan with the Association of Veterinary Students and the Veterinary Schools Council, and survey work with British Veterinary Chronic Illness. So an awful lot of collaboration has genuinely gone into this. I think sometimes people say, oh, it's a collaborative project. And then you say, what does a collaboration mean? Well, people pitched up to a meeting, but actually, genuinely, it has been very collaborative. So you can see on the timeline, we didn't do all those things at once. And I'm not going to go through all of these things, but I'll just point to a couple. One was the first thing that we actually did, the Medical Mind Matters Conference. It was very clear at the beginning that the issues that we were looking at were not just veterinary issues. They are issues affecting lots of other professions. So our first activity was actually a joint conference with doctors, pharmacists and dentists exploring areas of joint concern. And one of the things that came out of that was a campaign there you see on 2017, And Me, nothing to do with Me Too. We were before Me Too. And Me was all about saying 1 in 4 of us have mental health issues, and me. So it was very much people putting their hands up to say, yes, this is my story. And we were so fortunate to benefit from very, very kind, generous veterinary surgeons, veterinary nurses and others in the team who put themselves forward to say, yeah, this is me. This isn't anonymous. This is me. This is my photo. This is my bio. This is what happened to me. This is what I'm doing now. This is how I've recovered. This is the contribution I'm continuing to make to the profession. And it's been very, very powerful. And the human medics involved in that as well. The other thing that I just point to on this slide is in 2018, which was the launch of Mind Matters International. We're lucky enough to have Jen Brandt in the room. Jen, you around? at the back. So Jen's with the American Veterinary Medical Association, and back in 2018, Jen, myself, and our then chair of My Matters, Stuart Reid, who's over in the corner, agreed on a memorandum of understanding to work together to try and take the My Matters message out to a more global grouping. We've now got 12 different countries signed up through their associations or regulators to My Matters. We run online CPD sessions, we share case studies, we support each other in advocacy, and we're also planning a research seminar next year, so watch that space. So more recently, we've launched courses through our academy. Hopefully you might be familiar with the academy. It's something that we set up in the last few years at the college. It's an online learning portal to help vets and veterinary nurses meet the standards that are expected of them and support positive behaviour and environment, culture, working, all of those things. So we've got currently got a civility fundamentals course online, and Rapinder's going to tell you about 2 more that we've launched today, which is exciting. We've also updated our stress guide. This was one of the documents that's been most popular on the website, and I'd urge you to have a look at it. It's very practical, pragmatic guidance. And we've also now got a series of applied mental health guides as well. Research, that's why we're all here today. So there's a slide here just summarising some of the research that we funded, and excitingly, Anne Carrod will be announcing the research recipients this afternoon of our latest round. But just a note on the research, for the first 5 years of that research trust giving, what's the word I'm looking for? Grants. They were actually done in the name of Sarah Brown, who was one of our council members who sadly took her own life by suicide in 2017. And we were seeking a way to remember Sarah, who had been a really powerful advocate actually for mental health and had seemingly done all the right things. She'd sought help, she talked about her issues, she was very open and very positive, but still this terrible thing happened. And so I think the thing that Sarah's passing left us with more than anything was questions. So we thought actually research would be a really fitting way to remember Sarah. And also earlier I mentioned that the support part of what we do, we can't do directly ourselves because that might call into question our neutrality should there be a complaint about an individual that we need to deal with as a regulator. So we are very pleased to support some excellent services. So VetLife, that I'm sure you're all familiar with, we've got Rosie here in the room. You may be less familiar with, but equally important is vet support and ProfCon investigation support. We've got David McKeon here in the room. Both of those were also really inspired and supported by Des Thompson, who many of you will know is a real powerhouse in the veterinary scene, particularly in Northern Ireland. What vet support does, which is slightly different from VetLife, so they're both really quite complementary, is confidential but not anonymous support. So you would get an individual who you can work with over a period of time, and the ProfCon investigation support is an extension of that. So the same volunteers who are trained to help somebody navigate a complaint. So if you have a complaint that lands with you, we recognise how super stressful that can be. It's not legal advice, it's not somebody who's going to help you present your case, that's the job of the VDS. But it's somebody to just be a non-judgmental listening ear and support you through that process. So I would urge you to look at both those services online. And the work that we did to develop the ProfCon investigation support service was part of a specific piece of work that we did to look at how we could mitigate the impact of being a regulated professional. These sorts of programs are now happening quite a lot of regulators, and it's probably high time we refreshed ours. It was a good few years ago we did it. We carried out research looking at what the impact was and put together an action plan of a whole range of things that we've done, and we'll be looking to refresh that shortly. How are we doing for time? Oh my God, time. So the journey, are we there yet? The famous question is asked for the first time. I guess the question is, where are we trying to get to? If there is 0 suicides and 100% perfect mental health, then no, we are not there yet. If there is progress, acceptance, hope, that word that came up earlier, then I think things have changed, both here and overseas. The way we talk about mental health and priorities have changed. In the early days, it was all about destigmatization. I mean, I remember having conversations with people when we wanted to run mental health awareness courses saying, well, you can't use the words mental health, people won't come. Now, there's mental health on the agenda every conference. There's conversations, there's Facebook groups, there's lots and lots of support. A few years ago, we started to worry, though, had the pendulum swung too far? Were we actually talking too much about mental health? Were younger vets worrying about when they were going to have their breakdown rather than if? So we've tried to move the language a little bit so that it's more about surviving and thriving, not just about surviving, and also about what positive looks like and how people can really help themselves with positive narratives. Having said that, I'm really, really proud that we have never, at Mind Matters, balked at the sharp end of mental health issues. Some of the guides that we've got looking at some really difficult issues, really on the mental health end of mental health and well-being, not the well-being end. The free fruit bowls and pizza on Friday end of well-being is probably not where we are. We're much more still at the more important end. And it's something that we've also been looking at through our practice standard schemes to try to make this as systemic change as we can and to address as many practices as possible. We've also become a little bit more focused, I think, as our journey has gone on. I think I was guilty in the early days of being so delighted that anybody wanted to talk about mental health that I'd get in the car and drive to the back end of nowhere to talk about mental health in a practice meeting, providing they gave me some Diet Coke to drink on the way home. But these days, the scheme has really matured. The team have become much more professional. We're focusing much more on systemic and upstream change, which can only be to the good. And we've also included within the work our other work streams that have recently, the last 5-7 years, come together in the college around diversity and the academy that I've talked about. And that brings me to one other final part of our journey, really, which was a hard one for me. So a key part of our journey of improvement was me not being involved anymore. Back in the day, I had no experience of mental health, didn't really know what I was doing, managed to do an awful lot off the back of a fag packet on a Sunday afternoon. And it was probably pretty amazing. I didn't land us in any trouble. We now have a really professional team in place with Ankared and Rapinda and Sam and Lisa before them who actually know what they are doing. And me stepping away was really important, but I haven't stepped away entirely because what I have been able to do is to bring what I learned about mental health and wellbeing into our core regulatory work. I'm speeding up, but you can tell because I'm nearly finished now. We are trying now to be a compassionate regulator, and that was a core part of our last strategic plan. I've popped up here the logo of the Institute of Regulators because I think it nicely encapsulates that potential oxymoron of being a compassionate regulator. You've got the hawk and the dove. We need the carrot and the stick. We need to be compassionate, but we do need to have teeth at the end of the day. We are a statutory regulator. But I think some of the work that we've been able to do through Mind Matters has poured into our core regulatory role. Things like making sure that we are, mitigating the impact of our regulatory work. Things like the academy, which actually help and support people to succeed. And also supporting our staff teams who are dealing with complaints. For us to deliver a good service to you and to the public, we need to have people who are well supported. And sometimes people will say, well, you people in Belgravia House, we're not there anymore, in Hardwick Street, you don't know what it's like on the ground with vets. You don't know what it's like for us. You're sitting there in your ivory tower. My response to that is if you think about our complaints team, just spend a second thinking about the worst client that you've ever had and how difficult they were. And maybe you get that once a quarter or once a year. And then for my colleagues in the ProfCon team, that worst person is the call that they're on right now. And the call they'll be on next. And the call will be on the one after that. And all of their day is filled with your worst nightmare every single minute of the day. So we really need to make sure our teams are well supported. So what's been our impact? I think sometimes I feel really optimistic about what's changed and sometimes not so much. Just a couple of weeks ago, we had a regional question time meeting. And one of the delegates there, a veterinary surgeon, said to I won't say who because it might identify the conversation, but said to a colleague of mine, why are you spending members' money helping these mad people? That was 2 or 3 weeks ago. But life is not perfect. We're back to those barking dogs and you can't keep turning around. Everybody tries to put you off your course. We certainly raised awareness. As I said, mental health is on the agenda at every conference. We have broken down stigma. More and more people are reporting and calling for support to Vet Life Helpline. And that's not a negative, by the way. That is actually a positive thing. We've cleared the space and created permission for change. And this is why I've got this picture of the snowplow. I often think of us as the snowplow at the front of the game. We're clearing space for others to come in behind. So now there is a plethora of really valuable supportive services, counsellors, workshop groups, people who are there to support mental health in strategic ways as well, that have all sprung up. The Good Workplaces scheme from BVA, I think, is a good example of that as well. Have we started to change the way the RCVS is perceived? A little. I think most veterinary professionals only have experience of one regulator. So compassion can't be assessed across the piece. It's hard for you to know whether we're compassionate or not. One thing I do know is that when we have staff join us from other regulators, they really think that it's like a breath of fresh air working at the college in terms of the difference in culture. And when I speak at pan-regulatory conferences, I nearly always get at least one person wanting a job. So I think that's generally good. But measuring impacts of this kind of work is always really difficult. And we know that suicide rates will never be zero. They're complex, they're multifactorial. And although we know it's not just about suicide, every time there is another occurrence, it sets you back on your heels. And of course, the tragic stories of completed suicide are the ones that loom large in your mind when you're running a project like this, not the times when people have come up at training courses or after a talk to say that the work of Mind Matters has literally saved their life. But those events have happened too, and they have been very precious, and it's a very powerful thing to be told that you've helped shape a life worth living. So, nearly done. I put this picture in because I thought some of you might be falling asleep by now. It's one I like to call barned out. Get it? Barn? It's a picture of a barn in Slovenia. I'll leave it there. So what next? This is called A Short Story About Decisions, which is about a cat dipping a toe in the snow and coming back home. And despite what the naysayers said 10 years ago about Mind Matters just being a quick tick box exercise and something that college was trying to do a sticking plaster job, it has actually been a sustained project. We haven't just dipped our toe in the water or in the snow and run back to our warm comfort. It has been and will continue to be about sustainable action, collaborative action, evidence-based action, and resources for everybody. And I'm really proud of the work that the team have done. I'm proud we've kept the task force going for 10 years, and many of you in the room have been members or are members of that. We've worked with some amazing people, and many of you are here in the room, some amazing chairs and support. And I'm really keen to see what the professional team deliver in our next chapter. Much more needs to be done, and research is the cornerstone of moving forward, which is why we're here today. I just want to say thank you to everybody who's helped organise this event, the Mind Matters team, others from the AP team, communications team. What else have we got? I've forgotten. We've got a research team here. We've got Rosie, who's massively helped support the programme. It's just been amazing, really, what you've all managed to achieve, and I hope you're really going to enjoy it. I just want to say this finally. Mental health is a difficult area in which we work. It can be tough, heartbreaking, heartwarming, bleak and rewarding all at once. But it's certainly better when we do it together and with the power of compassionate curiosity. So don't worry, this isn't going to be role-playing, but I want you to turn to the person nearest to you. Just give them a big smile for being here.